than with the maybe a minor exception of a couple objects. Excuse me. Everything has been made in the last year and a half. 2 years. I do sprinkle in greatest hits to make sure. A lot of times, that's what Kristen mostly took out, which was totally awesome, you know, to me, because I didn't need it, and it all worked out just fine. I think the last show had a lot of greatest hits, and so that was good. But no, all this stuff, with the exception of a couple of the milk crates over there, and maybe that upside down guy, was all made in the last 2 years, relatively around the same time. I have a really small studio these days, but it's a really good spot. It's the first studio I've ever had with natural light and natural air at the same time, and so I work on a lot of things at once. Tend to be a little bit smaller these days than past works. But even that at the same time would be, you know, all came within the last 2 years. It's hard to say what came first and what came second. You could say that that came first and then that came after that. But for the most part, they're all pretty concurrent. Yeah. I've had that point though, you know, where it's like, you've done this and then you're doing this and you've done this and da 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, spent a lot of time in the art institute, you know, like the history of it all.
Yeah, it was somewhat similar to the question I was going to ask actually, which was the oldest work in here is from 2016, which are milk crates. But you feel like image making has changed for you since you got natural light and natural air together?
Yes and no, because this trend started when I had that basement apartment,
Sure.
the garden apartment, the bunker as we call it, which is, all right, make sure Andrew gets a beer.
Yeah.
Hey Andrew. And that apartment had no natural light. I mean, it was, you've been in there, it's all wood paneling and da 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 da. So, yeah. But probably, from those days though, that's from the bunker, maybe a couple of the objects, but most of the stuff.
That's me.
Way to go, Chuck. Way to go.
No, that's good. I thought it was just the building failing, so it's much
The
better than it's a
facility
light
guy in
switch.
me is like, ah, crap. Yeah, but most of this stuff is from the new place, so that's been great. You know, also there's been a lot of change in my life in the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm not going to get into all of that, but it's been, you know, it was bad and then it got really good. It continues to be really good. So it's probably why it's brighter, cleaner, less chaotic, less busy. I mean, think of that high piece that we did at the Soul Cafe.
Yeah, it's pretty busy.
Yeah, there's so much going. I mean, it even hurts my head to look at that stuff, you know. Yeah. So I think that it has a lot to do with it. So a little bit of environment and then, you know, life at the same time. So, and dealing with your bullshit. You know, you gotta deal with your bullshit. So it goes a long way.
Have you had any conversations with the milk company about product
Placement.
design?
No. I can't actually drink milk anymore, so that would be a problem. I don't think that would be a good thing, even though I could use the money. I'd stay away from product placement at all costs, I think. Unless my baseball team asked me, that might be something, but even that would be kind of pushing it, because it might jinx them. I'd like to do an album cover, that'd be cool. But, you know, if somebody liked what I did and, you know, waved some money, that'd be nice. Or, you know, figure out a way to make it work, because that's what you do. But there are plenty of other people that do that much better than I do. And I kind of like being under the radar and being able to do my own thing. I'll do this until the day I drop. It's just until I'm not capable of doing it anymore. I know it sounds, you know, kind of melrose and sad, but that's what my grandfather did. And that's just what I do. So I'm that weird kid that wanted to be an artist when he was like 5 years old. I wasn't like some guy who had something bad happen to him, and then like I had a friend in art school that was a star baseball player, and then broke his arm or his leg, and then started drawing in the hospital or whatever. That wasn't me. It's always been part of this. There have been a few champions along the way that's kind of helped push me to keep it going, like the aunt. And when I graduated in high school, my aunt said that she'd buy me as much art supplies as I wanted. And I walked out with a shopping cart, you know, and that's expensive. I don't think she realized. I think I maxed her credit card that day. Yeah, so I don't think I could stop doing it. But that's why I like to keep it simple, so I know I can keep doing it. I don't want to make it too fancy for many reasons, but that's a big part of it.
When I got here today, there were people playing catch in the alley.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about baseball? And follow up, do you feel competitive in art making?
Absolutely. I used to get really fired up when I had like the first studio that I rented that was with other studios. They were with a lot of Sunday painters, both male and female, and I was a kid and I was really fired up and I was there all the time, but then that one person would come in and say, you're too noisy, you're too loud, or you smell, or, you know, too much pot, or whatever. And that would get me fired up. I think I'm competitive to a point. I'm in no means ready to like run a race, but I like to make sure I can hold my own with that stuff. I think that's most important to me. Yeah, baseball's really important. It's a blessing and a curse. My team lost today, as they usually do against the A's. Other than art, it's like one of the things that I used to really love as a kid that kind of still sticks with me, that I can you know, pass on to my kids and reminds me of family. You know, it's not like church where it has all that stigma, you know. The church that my family still goes to is baseball, you know. Art museum and ballparks was our church. Till it got super expensive, which sucks, but you know, that's life. I still haven't showed my super great baseball painting, and someday I will. I have a friend who, it's really funny, I have this great painting of the guy who pitched the first San Francisco Giants game against the Dodgers at Seal Stadium, and he won. A friend saw it on my Instagram feed, Efren. Turns out Efren grew up with the guy, went to the prom with his daughter, so we're finding a place where we can show it and do all that. And I think the next takeaway for next show might be a bunch of ballpark drawings or baseball drawings, but it's also a link to family, and because whatever it is, whether it's sports or music or culture or art or, you know, gardening or cooking, you know, that's something that you get from the past generations. And for me, that's baseball. That was kind of my connection with my grandparents and my family. So it's really important to me in that way. You know, I can not talk to my relatives for a long time, but we can just, you know, ramble on about sports for a couple minutes and then everything will be fine. So.
That's the last softball I have for you.
Okay,
So
cool.
anyone else can ask
Myler
a
has to ask 2
hard
questions.
question if you want.
I saw you on the street today when I was walking by.
Street.
I was driving by Whole Foods down Broadway at
Oh.
2:33 o'clock. You looked very serious. It was very un-you.
It's my last grocery shopping here.
Ah, that's right. That's right.
All right, I have to ask you questions. So, I mean, I don't know I know the black and white ones are your more current creations, right? And all these others kind of probably go back a few years here and there. Not pretty recent.
It's all around the same time, yeah.
It's all the same time.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
why
much,
it's
yeah.
surprising to me. I mean, I guess my question would be like, you know, I know what you do like professionally outside of this, right? Very well. But so, you know, I think I see a lot of kind of relation to sort of like the organized chaos and everything that we deal with like professionally. And I was just, you know, like how, I guess my question is like, you know, my interpretation into my own artwork is to go the complete opposite and become like obsessive about my mark making and very process oriented and try and regain all of that control. And I'm just like curious how, you know, these ones seem a lot more controlled than the others, right? But how sort of that day-to-day professional life sort of carries over into, you know, your like escape into the art world, right? Or into making, or if you can somehow just completely separate the two.
I think nowadays they're pretty separate, and the chaos has always been there in my life and in just what I do, and not always in a bad way, Bella, by the way, you know, like case here. And also I've always got so much stuff going on in my head, which is probably why I'm good at my job, because I can deal with it most days, not all days. But I think it's documenting a lot of that. There's definitely a lot of that going on and all that, but most of these notes are taken from on the way there. And then, so it's kind of, it's a respite at the same time, you know, because this is what I do to, you know, relax before I get to the office, you know. Headphones on, it's loud, draw, finish as much as I can, you know, get off the train, play the music as loud as I can until I absolutely can't do it anymore. And then, you know, but luckily I live in, you know, I work in Irvine, so it's not that, you know, I can, you know, kind of bullshit a little bit longer. But then it's the same way on the way home or at lunch, you know, is to do that. And then, you know, I've got a busy home life too. So when I'm able to get past that and do that, that's why I think I never leave the house without materials. And it's kind of, and I've been like that since I was like 12, you know, it's always been like a notebook and a pen, you know. So it's, yeah, in a way it's a way of dealing with it, but it's always been my kind of stuff. So it's always, you know, taken over more than anything else. All right.
I got one for you.
All right.
I have one question.
All right, Charles.
Yeah, you kind of alluded. That's how I roll.
Okay. You sure about that?
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
So, I mean, it's how, I guess it's, I know every artist has their, you know, their own style. Yours is more, you don't see anybody working like this. I don't see anybody working like this. Is there an importance you put into what you're trying to say? Like here, it's like she sees a language, you see images. Is there any importance you put into painting and creating this way? Like you need to, in essence, like it's important to see the world in this style.
From my voice.
Right.
Yeah.
In essence, like you don't, I don't want to say, but I mean it does come from comic books, it comes from like pop culture, I see a little Basquiat, obviously that's, you know, should
I
more.
kind of think these are Keith Haring ripoffs.
Yes, Haring.
Yeah, you know.
Essentially, it's like, should more artists be kind of creating in this style? Is there a certain, this visual language that you've created, is there an importance, kind of an importance to it, or a way that we see the world better, clearer I mean, every artist is different.
I-
They have their own ways of
yeah.
in the world, but
I think the language is definitely there, but am I in charge of it? I don't think so. Like, you know.
sure, this is what you.
Yeah, it's just what I spew out. I mean, I'm getting better and better at controlling and talking about it the older I get. But I think this is the most successful that I've been at it. Everybody might not agree with that. But it's
Absolutely.
you know, as you know me, I'm ready to put my middle finger
Oh,
all the
wait,
time.
that.
It's kind of like, you know, a point of pride. But, yeah.
Because there's just something about making
Yeah.
images in this manner.
It's definitely
You're
important to
comfortable.
have my own voice and do my own thing. Yeah, and not run with the bulls.
Of course.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And do you think like ideas come across clear in such a visual language, or is there something more pronounced and said? If you just say like did like just simple lines of the same idea. Is there something
Right.
more that one is getting from this more expressive, this more?
Yes and no. I think it depends.
Just a,
I think it's
Sure.
like life. I think it just kind of depends.
Right.
You know, I can't. Nothing is just like
This is what you put out.
right. It's like
What
not
you
like
get.
step 1, step 2, step 3, and then you have cake.
Of course.
You know, like I'm terrible at cooking. Terrible at making. My wife will tell you. You know, the minute she taught herself how to cook, she didn't want to eat my cooking. Yeah. By the way, she made hummus. It's really good. But yeah. Because I couldn't, do the 1, 2, 3. I mean, I could paint a landscape, but
No.
it'd be pretty boring. I mean,
Sure. Oh, of course.
you know.
Well, it's just like I see your work. It's just there's just so much to get out of it.
Yeah.
And you go to like essentially like two people could be saying the same, obviously same thing, but I mean, I'm stating a lot of obvious things here to the group.
No, you're not.
But yours is just there's so much more to like hang on to and grab at, versus
Yeah.
some other folks who might try to be saying the same things, do the same thing, but it's just not there with.
Well, I'm trying to
This
be
is
more
important
clear about it and like have more substantial things on it and not have too many condiments.
Or I guess also it's
Just like anything else, sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not.
I like it.
Thanks, brother.
You said that it's a language that you're getting better
Yeah,
at.
yeah.
Do you feel like there is some archetypal ideal that precedes you that you are pursuing?